Hello everyone, Carlos here. Welcome to my weekly What's Up in Archaeology. Today we're going to discuss an article that came about this week. It's about, you can make jokes about it though. It basically is we've mapped the genomes of ancient Egyptian mummies, and the surprising revelation will be revealed as we go on to the as we read the article. I've chosen a male online, but as you all know, I always provide links to the actual study and to other articles that have been written from other reputable scientific magazines. My guest today is Sargon of Akkad. How are you, man?
I'm very good, thanks.
Sorry to have taken you away from your other stream. I was listening to it; it was quite good. And
I was doing it while I was waiting for you to get ready, basically.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm just going to share the screen. As I said, this is a good. I've read the Mail article. I'm just going to make it big. It's very close to the actual study because I've read that. It's in the description. It's not the Max Planck link. It's the Nature link from the Nature magazine publications. That's the actual study, and this is basically a summary of what they found, and they've managed to map the genomes of ancient Egyptian mummies, and as the article title says, they are more Turkish and European than African. Oh wow, this is gonna pop some Hotep's
right, okay.
minds.
Before we go on, then, yes. Yeah, when they say Turkish, they don't actually mean Turkish, do they?
No, it's Anatolia, the general area of the Anatolian Peninsula. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, this is going to be the Daily Mail and their lack of historical knowledge. But the Turks didn't arrive in Anatolia until what, like the 9th century or something. So.
Oh yeah. No, it's the Anatolian Peninsula, basically. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we're talking about the Phrygians, the Lycians, all those sort of people, Cappadocians.
Hittites, even the Hittites, even as far back as those. Yeah. So yeah.
The post-Hittite states, but yeah. Sorry, go on.
I'll go back even further than what we just mentioned now. After the Neolithic revolution, where there's the map here, so you guys can all see where we are located, and we'll go back down. The blue area is Europe, the yellow area is Anatolia, the red area is the Levant, which encompasses Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Iraq, and Jordan. That's basically the red and the yellow are where production began, domestication of animals and plants, the Fertile Crescent. These peoples, we know that they were genetically similar, spread out across the world, Europe, and they displaced genetically the hunter-gatherers. Now that same thing happened in Egypt, but they had an independent domestication event. So they sort of independently developed domestication by themselves, which we found out. Now, we'll start the article reading. This is just a little bit of a background, so I'll get everything right. This Max Planck Institute is possibly the preeminent genome splicing center in Europe, in the world, in fact. Everyone goes there to analyze, DNA material from ancient and modern sources. So this will start. The first ever genome analysis of ancient Egyptians shows that they were more Turkish. No, not Turkish, modern Turkish, Anatolian area inhabitants, Turks, basically, and European than African. The scientists analyzed ancient DNA from the Egyptian mummies dating from 1400 BC to 400 AD. So it's it's 1,000 years.
Yeah, and we're talking. Let me So after Thutmose, what was the date of Ramses?
Late kingdom, the late kingdoms, after the 24th dynasty, basically.
So Ramses II was 19th dynasty, 1279.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So we're talking,
and up until Rome, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, up until Rome. But we're talking about the famous ones, the ones that people recognize, statues. But yeah, sorry, I just want to help people understand.
Oh yeah. You interrupt me, man. You interrupt me, ask questions, and we'll of course, this is what we're doing here. They found that the ancient Egyptians were more closely related to the populations of the Levant, now modern day Turkey. See, now they correct themselves. Syria, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, the Fertile Crescent. That's everyone, archaeologists know about that. It's the area that I showed, the yellow and red here in this map. And similar genetic populations of Europe as well. Area here, Greece, around the Black Sea, mainly. And they used new techniques to get to those results. The study is published in Nature. I have the link in the description. And they found that the Egyptians share more ancestry with the modern Egyptians share more ancestry with sub-Saharan Africans than the ancient ones did, which is not surprising. I'll reduce this and show you why. It basically comes down to this dynasty of ancient Egypt. This is before the period that we're talking about. This is 14. They started the analysis 1400 BC. This is 760 BC. And what does this dynasty have? They were the Nubians that conquered Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So they introduced sub-Saharan genotypes into the populations after that, and
it might be worth unfortunately reminding our We Was Kang's friends is that Egypt was a Semitic kingdom, wasn't it?
Yes, basically, yes, you could say that. Yeah.
Okay, maybe not necessarily. Maybe you wouldn't say it.
Not Semitic. The Semitic came later, and so they shared genes. It was the local populations of the Levant and Egypt, even Anatolia.
They were very, very closely related to the people of the Levant and Middle East.
They crossed genes because they were always in contact with each other.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And even Egypt was never isolated, even with the Negev desert.
You've got tales of invading. Wasn't that like 1400 BC or something? The Hyksos invasion.
Well, I can bring up the whole Egyptian. There is a list of ancient Egyptian dynasties. Wikipedia is not too bad, and here we are.
Wikipedia, but for historical stuff, it's actually really good.
Yeah, it is. Yep. The early periods were the first dynasties. I can go the thinnest, the Old Kingdom, the first intermediate. We're going to the late period. The third intermediate period. We can start here. The 21st. No, Ramesses. Even before that, the New Kingdom. Did you say that Ramesses? Well, here we go. Ramesses, the 19th dynasty. That's the green is in the map here. The green is the Egyptian, and they were in contact with the Hittite Empire. So
when we say contact, that's a really generous way of a really diplomatic way of putting it. They were often at war with the Hittites. One thing interesting is that the very first peace treaty that we ever have is between the Hittites and the Egyptians.
Yes, it is. Yes, and also with the Assyrians. The ancient, the Agamemnon type Greeks.
The Achaeans. Sorry, yeah. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong though. We got a peace treaty with them, have we?
Yes, they did, because they were the Assyrians. That's how I learned to pronounce it from Clive Gamble. He was a British archaeologist.
Yeah.
And he corrected me. It's the Assyrians. You also have Michael Woods, the historian Michael Woods. He did a superb book on and BBC program on the Trojan War, in the 80s.
For people who don't know, I mean, there have probably been many Trojan Wars. The site of Troy has been excavated extensively, and there are layers upon layers upon layers. And around the time that the Iliad is supposed to be set is a layer of complete destruction, isn't there?
Yes, it is. Yes, layer 13th, I think it was, 13th or 17th. I can't remember now off my head. But yeah, Schliemann first excavated, then Arthur Evans came later.
And the thing is, I think that I mean, one of the things I find, sorry to get a bit off the tangent, but I love the era of the Bronze Age collapse. I think it's so fascinating that you just have, and I mean, it must have been the Assyrians. It must have been the people before the ancient Greeks who were attacking everyone. I mean, I can't imagine where else it would have come from. And I think was it Ramesses III who had put up a stele about this, and he said that they had a conspiracy in their isles. And I can't think of another group of islands anywhere near that could have conspired to go and invade the area. So it must have been people from what is now Greece attacking the Middle East.
The sea people, yes. That's probably where the sea people came from that attacked Greece, that they formed the Philistines and etc. So yeah, that's perfectly. So you see, I mean, they were in contact with each other diplomatically at war, and also trade and even genetic contacts.
This is like in the Near East, it was really interconnected. You know, international trade and travel was a huge thing, and the thing is, people don't understand how different the civilizations were as well. Like there were essentially two major institutions in a society, which was the palace and the temple. And the temple would help with basically social issues, and the palace would deal with political issues. And these things were enormous. They were. I went to the palace at Minos, and man, it was colossal. You know, there must have been tens of thousands of people who lived and worked there, and it was a giant administrative complex. It wasn't just like, and the actual throne room of the king was actually rather small, and it was kind of small and not very impressive. I mean, when they think of kings and stuff, they think of great halls and things like this. But
that's a modern stereotypical, great halls there. That's a modern invention. But yes, I don't like Arthur Evans' recreation of the Minos, the throne room and the palace. It's just not right to me, and not just to me, to one of my archaeology professors who has excavated in Crete, and he didn't like it either. So I think it's a bit of a.
I only went and visited the ruins, so I don't know whether I don't know whether it's a good interpretation or excavation or not. But I mean, it was huge. And
it is. It was. It had a. It was one of the great civilizations. The Minoan civilization that influenced the Assyrians, the Agamemnon and the famous who did the Trojan War, the famous Trojan War, Paris and etc. That period. Yeah.
What's interesting?
They influenced. The language was Greek, but they used the alphabet, the Minoan alphabet. Linear B is the Greek one. Linear A is the Minoan script, and they still haven't really deciphered Linear A. So
yeah, I've actually got a copy of the Phaistos disc sat on my shelf behind me. I picked it up as a little.
But, that's a bit of a good background. That the area we're covering, the time, yeah. And sorry to interrupt you.
I was getting.
No, that's fine. I do that as well. You should see all my archaeology things. I get on for tangent explaining things that link back. So, yeah, this is linking back to this. These they share genetic material, genetic ancestry from these areas. So that's not. It's fine. It's exactly where we should do. And now, getting back to trail, Egypt, as it says, is a promising location for study of ancient populations because it was a worldwide hub. It's like London is now, or it still is, Paris, Lisbon in the 14th century, Amsterdam in the 16th century, great hubs where trade, civilization, everything came in. And Egypt was one of those places. And so they up until then, they couldn't excavate. They couldn't get the genetic material for a lot of reasons, which will sort of jump ahead. The article of the Mail just gets you the background story of more or less what we covered. The ancient Egypt in the first millennium was dominated by many foreign powers. Well, after the 25th dynasty, yes. Before that, the Assyrians invaded once, didn't they?
Oh, what, Egypt?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they conquered it. Yeah.
Conquering Egypt was effectively the end of the Assyrian Empire. They had overstretched, and I can't remember the name of the last Assyrian king.
I mean, neither.
Yeah, basically they were 1,000 miles away from Nineveh, and the Assyrian armies there thrashing the Egyptians. And basically, it was the Scythians, the Persians, the Medes, and the Babylonians all realized that, well, they're 1,000 miles away, and we're not. So they spent, I don't know, about 6 years, I think it was, wiping out the Assyrians. And by the time the Assyrian army got back, it was just not in a position to put up a stiff resistance.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, that's why you'd see, these events don't really transfer a lot of genetic admixing in that.
Oh, no.
They're brief. If they had stayed there up until then, there wasn't really a dominating arm in the ground. So there's no...
It wasn't colonization when the Assyrians conquered Egypt. Yeah. And I don't think... How long did they hold it for? Let me just... I don't think it was very long. That was the thing.
While you do that, I'll continue to read just a little bit to just explain to the people that are watching, so they won't get too bored. Their team's research involved in unraveling of genetic history of the Egyptians by comparing DNA samples taken from both modern and ancient natives. There was a problem. There's no problem extracting from the modern. Just go outside. Go to Cairo, swab a few cheeks, and you get the material. But the problem is, the article shows here between the period that they covered, 1400 BC to 400 AD. You had the Nubians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Assyrians. They all left the gene pool in the area of modern Egypt. So, and the archaeologists, the geneticists wanted to know how much influence each of those powers had. The map shows where the area is where they found the mummies here in El Fayum. It's close to the Aswan. No, it's a Middle Kingdom. Would have been the Middle Kingdom. Giza with the Upper Kingdom. Doesn't show the Lower Kingdom down here. Luxor, there it is. Luxor. That was the Lower Kingdom. One of the temples, if I remember my Egyptology enough. Mm-hmm. So just the article shows that. But how was it done? Well, they had to extract the DNA from mummies, and up until then, it was fucking hard. Why? Egypt is a very dry place and hot. We all know that. And the tombs, surprisingly, are very humid. Many of the tombs are very, very humid, considering it's in a desert place, in a desert. So the DNA degrades really, really quickly in those conditions. It needs cool temperature for DNA to survive. And another matter is that the mummies were embalmed. And there are chemicals in the embalming method that really destroy DNA. One of them is sodium carbonate. And sodium carbonate really degrades DNA. And also, up until now, they have extracted DNA from other mummies, but they were not reliable because they couldn't control if they were contaminated by modern means or etc. So of the 151 mummified individuals that they took from Abu Sir al-Malek in the Nile River, they recovered the mitochondrial genomes of 90 individuals, which is really, really good.
Okay.
So
I don't,
they
yeah,
go.
I don't have any particular questions or anything. I'm just
So for the last 1500 years, then the last 1500 years, the Egyptians became more genetically African, which is not surprising. Why? After the Romans, who came? You had the Nubians; they were African. Then the Romans, then the Arabs, and then waves of other not basically fighters, but traders. After the Arabization of the North Africa, traders just moved in and out, so that's why they became more African after 1500 years. Now this. Oh God! This picture, it's not a picture, it's a, sometimes my language skills fail me. This diagram, that's it, diagram. It basically shows each of the markers, the genetic markers that they've extracted from all of the DNA that they recovered. And you have some, each of the colors represent an area from modern Egypt, the Levant, which is what we've already said. It's basically the Middle East, from Turkey to modern Turkey to Iraq, Syria, Jordan, etc., Israel. And they placed them, and they found that the older the samples, like the old ancient DNAs, they were closer, Levant, European, and the new ones are more African and Levant area, including Saudi Arabia. And I think there's a better diagram that explains this a bit more in detail, a bit easier to read. Let's see, in the SIOG, in the actual study, which is this one. See the map where they got the article. This what I'm showing now is the actual article that they published in the Nature magazine. The Nature results. It's a bit. That's how they found the study for where they got the DNA and how it was preserved, the techniques that they used. But I want to focus on this here. This one here. You can see the just make this bigger. Oh, wrong side. That's about it. Oh, shit! I'm crap at this. So I apologize, people. I'm crap at showing things. Method. Discussion. Good thing that this one has quick links to the. To the here we go. This article, this one here, it's a bit more easier to see. It's easier to, because it shows the genetic frequencies of certain markers that are these ones here. I don't know what they mean. HVH, T2, T1, they are genetic markers. I have no idea what they mean. But the samples are pre-Ptolemaic, Roman, Egyptian, Ethiopian. The figure A. Wall C. It plans plans them out on a.
What's the difference between Ptolemaic and Egyptian?
Ptolemaic Egyptian had lots of the Greek. They were Greeks, but they were the Greeks. Yeah, Alexander the Great.
Yeah, but pre-Ptolemaic is that?
Yeah. Some Nubian and the natives, the original natives. most likely.
What's the Egypt one next to it? Is that modern Egypt?
Modern. These are modern. Egypt and Ethiopia are modern ones. And these are the markers, and you can compare the markers.
It's actually, doesn't it?
You also can see here. I think it says here that the mitochondrial DNA haplogroup frequencies of the 3 ancient and 2 modern groups. 3 ancient, 2 modern groups. The population component analysis of haplogroup frequencies. I don't know what this means, honestly. I'm not a geneticist. I could interpret the minimally to know the difference between the haplotype of a pre-Ptolemaic to a modern, because it's easy to see, but I honestly don't know what they mean. But it does. They put them in subgroups. The sub-Saharan Africa are the green ones. The North Africans are the light green, and the Near East orange, European yellow. So you can see that from here that the ancient ones were not as much European and Near East in these 2 modern samples, because Ethiopia had a lot of contact with if I'm not mistaken, with Europeans after 1400.
Yeah, they had a lot of colonial contact. Yeah. They were the only native country to resist a European power. Well done, Italy.
I think Portugal has a key in that, because we contacted them. 2 of our explorers in the 1500s. They went over. They went overland. They actually dressed up as, and they learned Arabic. So they went there to contact Prestigion, the kingdom of Prestigion.
Yes. And for people who don't know what the kingdom of Prestigion is, this was effectively some mythical Christian kingdom somewhere far to the east that was holding out against the Muslim hordes, or was something like that. Basically.
And Ethiopia was a Christian kingdom, yes, but not as powerful as they thought the Portuguese kingdom thought it was. So had the mummies, a nice mummy, but now the article goes on, why is it difficult to extract DNA? I've already said some of it: the hot Egyptian climate, high humidity levels, the sodium carbonate involved in the embalming fluids, and then how did they get the DNA, the clean DNA? They used recent advances in modern genetic technology. They extracted accurate full genome DNA from the 3 ancient Egyptian mummies. They were usable segments of DNA from the 90 mummies. So the 90 mummies, they extracted little bits, and then the computer sort of found how the patterns of errors. And if they matched the patterns of errors, then they could see a cleaner strand and say, okay, this should fit here, which it sort of did. Like it says here, the complete read allowed the team to spot telltale damage patterns associated with only in the ancient DNA. That's how they knew that they were using non-contaminated DNA, because ancient DNA has degradation pattern that's easy to spot. Then they extracted the nuclear DNA from the mummies. They used new sequencing techniques, which the Max Planck Institute is famous for. And they were able to reconstruct and map the whole of the data. And here's a nice skull. How did they extract it? Well, they used parts of the bone that were less exposed, or teeth. The tooth was still in the mandible or the skull. They would extract from inside. But of course, they'd have to take the tooth out, and where it was never exposed too much to outside influences, then they could extract some of the material. They ground the bit of the bone on the teeth and that. So that's how one way that they could extract clean DNA. Of course, it was all done in a very, very clean room, and it's not. This would it's equal to the CDC centers where they store all those dangerous diseases and viruses. Pressurized to air. If anything happens, the air comes in instead of coming out. All that type of precautions. So, what else? They found that the populations, the ancient populations, were affected by foreign conquests and dominations during a long period of time, mostly from the fifth dynasty. Like fifth dynasty is the dynasty where the Nubians were, where the Hotep say, "Oh, we were kings." They were for how many? What was the period? About 100 years.
That was 100 years.
760 BC to 565, 656 BC. About 100 years. That was their whole. We were kings.
Yeah. Then came the Assyrians. Then came the Persians. Then came the Greeks. Then came the Romans.
Then came the Arabs.
Then came the Turks.
Yes. Then the Turks. Yes. Then the British. Oh no! Before the British, the French won for a couple of seasons, 2-3 years.
Yeah. Napoleon got there first.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, Napoleon's battles against the Mamluks are quite incredible. The sheer disparity in casualties it's one of the most horrific things you've ever seen, because the Mamluks just got shot. It's basically Indiana Jones. It really is. It's sad.
Oh, of course it is. They didn't have they probably didn't have gunpowder.
No, I don't think they did. If they did, it wasn't in it wasn't anywhere near the sort of like developed as the French. Let me just find the Napoleon ones, because I'll just get the numbers up.
I'll stop sharing mine so I can put you or whatever you want to share. Yeah.
I'm just quoting the Wikipedia figures, but basically the French sent 40,000 men over, and the Ottomans at the time had something like 220,000. I'll just get a couple of the battles up. So the Battle of the Pyramids is one of the famous ones.
Oh yes, I've read a bit about that one.
This is horrific, right? So Napoleon's got 20,000 men in total. The Mamluks have got 25,000. The French win a decisive victory with 29 dead and 20,000 Mamluks dead. It's just like, holy shit. I mean, you have to understand, the Mamluks defeated the Mongols. The Mamluks were an incredibly professional and powerful fighting force, and Napoleon just waxes them completely.
Did they have cannon, though?
Oh, what, the Mamluks? Probably not.
Well, they haven't. I know that the French, Napoleon was a brilliant artillery officer.
Oh, yeah. He was, yeah. I mean, Napoleon basically reconfigured the French army to focus and work around the artillery, because until Napoleon, artillery was a support for the main body of the infantry and the
yes.
But after Napoleon, the army was basically the support for the artillery, and it revolutionized warfare, obviously.
Until Wellington.
Well, yeah. But let's get back on topic. My fault.
Yes. The article's basically over.
So what conclusions can we draw that we can say? We can say basically that there was a Nubian dynasty, and these people would have undoubtedly been black. However,
what we can get from these. Sorry, go on, Zaf. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no. Just they only ruled for about 100 years until the Assyrians came along. Before
no, not the Assyrians. There was still a couple of dynasties. One dynasty that lasted a little bit, the 26th dynasty, that was back to the native Egyptians.
Oh, so, right, thrown out by the natives, right? Okay,
exactly. Yeah, they were thrown out. Then all the other powers come, because at that point Egypt was really, really weakened by all those battles and shit from the south and east, in fact.
But the point is the Egyptian dynasties that had come before that. They were a lot more Indo and and Middle Eastern than they were sub-Saharan, and that's unfortunately the genetic information that we have from the bodies of those pharaohs. I mean, I think it's worth clarifying that there's a fairly good chance that this doesn't necessarily represent the body of the population. This could have been a ruling aristocracy.
Well,
I don't know whether we've.
I don't know. I think yeah, we haven't found we haven't studied the genetic makeup of the ancient peoples, the farmers, the craftsmen, and that. But I suspect that no. I suspect that the movements, the initial movements from the Nubians, and then the other powers that actually put their ruled them, and then even the trade, the initial trade was always to the east, to the heartlands of the Levant area and north to Anatolia, to Greece, to the area of Greece, the even to Italy with the slightly later the Latin peoples, Rome, pre-Rome's, the etc. So they would have had contact that way through the people. But this shows that there was quite a homogeneous population of people in quite a large area from the Eastern Mediterranean, around the Eastern Mediterranean, due to what I just said: trade, conquest. Even just moving there, the end of the Bronze Age, collapsed. There was a huge movement of peoples in all of the Mediterranean and European area.
Yeah, that's actually really something worth talking about. People basically moving people around was completely standard practice in the ancient Near East. We find it really bizarre today because we don't do it. But I mean, every time the Assyrians conquered somewhere, they would deport the population of that place that wasn't killed just to somewhere else in the Assyrian Empire. I mean, that's what the 10 lost tribes of Israel are lost because the Assyrians conquered the kingdom of Israel and just deported them all somewhere in the Assyrian Empire, and we don't know where they were because the Assyrians weren't going to keep the records of it, and they didn't get to go home.
Most went to Babylon. That's where they wrote
that's a separate thing. That's when Nebuchadnezzar conquered Babylon.
Yeah,
and he
was he later than the Assyrian?
Yeah, he was after the Assyrians. Yeah, but the Assyrians did this as a matter of course, and they would effectively find themselves serfs, being as farmers somewhere in the Assyrian Empire, and then they just get lost to history because the Assyrians certainly didn't give a shit about their opinions or telling people that they existed anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't just the Assyrians that did this, obviously, and so that I think
the Assyrians did that as well.
Yeah. I mean, literally everyone did it. I'm sure the Hittites would have done it as well. So, I think that's undoubtedly going to contribute to the sort of the spreading out of genes across the Middle East.
Yep. And yeah, that's one of the methods that were used even before that. Like I started off explaining how the Neolithic revolution with the introduction of domestication or food production, you might say, how it substituted the native hunter-gatherers, and we know that because they were separate genetic peoples, which I up until then thought. Up until recently, when I first saw the study, that they were just in culture. They learned the culture from the food producers, the hunter gatherers. But no, they actually replaced them.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Is that you would think that people would adopt farming, and when I was like 10 years ago, and I was just reading all of this sort of stuff for my own entertainment. It was just assumed that these people had adopted the technology. They'd obviously gone to trade with these people or something like that and been like, oh, that's a good idea. We'll do that too. But they apparently didn't.
No, they didn't. And there's a really good example, Australia. Papua New Guinea, you can see Papua New Guinea from Northern Territory, from the Cape of Cape York. Some of the islands there, the Torres Strait Islands and that. The Papua New Guineans, they developed food production. while the Australians didn't, and they were contacting with each other for thousands of years before the Europeans arrived there. Even no, before the Chinese arrived there.
Yeah, but they for some reason didn't adopt it, and
they said not worth the bother.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's just so bizarre, though. You know, I mean, I guess one of the things that is worth remembering is that farming agriculture is a technology all of its own as well, and it didn't start in the fantastic situation that we have it now. And I imagine that it probably was only worth it if you were in a fertile region. If you're not in a fertile region, you probably have to work a lot harder to get any results.
Even then, the studies that have been made from up until about the 6th millennium, agriculture started in the 9th millennium BC. 12,000 years ago, 11,000 years ago. And for the first 4,000 years, the humans the humans that practiced food production were on the brink of dying out, because a small change, a freak storm would kill the whole areas of people. It wasn't until the invention of the city-state, the Assyrians 6,000 years ago, more or less, that it became the production of food was enough to have surpluses to enable all those features that we have now: the city-state, the bureaucracy, language, writing, trades, social stratification.
Any production that doesn't revolve around food production, in fact.
Exactly, yeah.
And anything that was, I mean, you require a food surplus to be able to sustain anything that isn't in the process of developing food, fishing, hunting, whatever. You know, to do anything else, to be a carpenter or someone who writes or something like that, it requires a huge surplus, and you just can't do it. And I mean, I find it very interesting that it took them thousands of years to develop grain storage, and it's not that I think that they were like incompetent or something. I wonder if that's down to simply not having a surplus to store.
Well, there was the early ones were still slightly nomadic. Up for about 1,000, 2,000 years, the food producers were nomadic. They would plant the grain, move on to another area. When they come back next season, they have the grains there, so they'd harvest them. That was the initial one. They were mainly first producers were basically pastoralists. The planting of plants was a secondary food source. So
it's just important. It wasn't just, oh, I've learned how to farm now we've got loads of food. Actually, it was really difficult, and it probably looked like an untenable prospect if you're like a hunter-gatherer and you're watching these people struggle, and you think, okay, well, that's a lot of work, and the next year you come back and you see their crop has failed, and you think, well, that's not worth the time, is it? You know,
interesting that firing pottery was first developed about 30,000 years ago in the heights of the Paleolithic, in Dolny Vostonica. It's an open-air site in Czech Republic. There's no caves there. It was a summer camp. We know that. They built the huts using mammoth bones. There were no trees. This was tundra then, in the 30,000 years ago. We were at the height of one of our last glacial periods. Really cold. And there were still Neanderthals, some in the Iberian Peninsula, at least there. So they had kilns which they produced clay figurines of animals, of humans. Horses and lions were the main ones, but other ones were made there. So they knew the technology to fire clay. They didn't apply it until 7,000 years ago, basically, when the Neolithic period started itself.
I guess they didn't really have one of the. What other reason would they be? Would they have to, basically make it a standard technology?
Then it was, because then after that everything just expanded. The technology just exploded exponentially. After pottery was reinvented, basically for storage. Writing came up afterwards, not far behind.
This is actually one of my favorite subjects to get into, because people always imagine, oh my god, the earliest writing, they must have been writing amazing things, great treaties, and there must be something. No, they were all hunting shekels. It was all.
They were counting grains and so on, pots and that. Yeah.
How much is in this pot? And that's all it was. That was the need for money, to keep track of my cash. And it wasn't even cash; it was like goods. But yeah,
it was goods because it was still a barter system, and after you could get someone to control an area of production, a really good valley. That tribe, that really extended family, who became so powerfully strong with the population size that they could then exert their power onto neighboring tribes. Thus, the chiefdom was born.
Mm-hmm.
And after the chiefdom, it's just a strong chief controlling other chiefdoms. You have the city-state. The easy social stratification, and
one of the things, I watched a documentary about the earliest city states in the Levant, and one of the interesting things about some of the absolute earliest ones is that there doesn't appear to have been anything in the way of division of labor. It just seems to have been a bunch of farmers living with each other.
In farming, you didn't have a natural division of labor, because farming in that time, you didn't have the plow, you didn't have you had.
I meant non-farming professionals. When I say
no, exactly, yeah. Craftsmen could be any sex, males, females, doesn't matter.
But what don't seem to have had professional classes away from but
there wasn't.
No, that's the thing. But and so realistically, and this is people are going to hate this, but they were effectively living the communist dream. This is the thing. They were all owners of the means of production. The head man or the chief or whatever, his hut was only very slightly bigger. So okay, it wasn't quite the socialist classless dream, but for all intents and purposes, it would have been. There was very little centralization of wealth, because wealth wasn't something that was dealt with in.
No, I disagree. No, after the chiefdoms, there was a social stratification and there was a concentration of wealth. Before that,
I'm talking about the first. I'm just going on what this documentary said. If it's wrong, then it's wrong.
From what I studied, the real communist Ethiopia is hunter-gathering.
See, I'm not convinced of that, because that's. I don't think you could really call that a civilization.
No, it's not a civilization. I mean, it's the social structure itself. There was no civilization. There was no ownership. There was no money. There was no hierarchy. They followed a leader only because he would have gave good ideas, good hunting strategies, etc. But he would have been.
That's the thing. Whereas when you finally have like a city-state, people have houses. They each lived in. Well, I imagine a bunch of them lived in one house. But the interesting thing about these houses was they were all essentially the same. No one really had anything different. No one had anything that was anything that could be considered ostentation. And so these people were as close to living in sort of communist socialist dream world as possible. And I mean, obviously these were not like, these were the best that humanity had, but you would consider it to be so dreadfully impoverished and horrendous. I mean, they used to bury people under the floorboards. Well, not floorboards, but like the floors of their houses.
Yeah, but that was probably the religion that they it's not in Asia. They still practice that, so that's not one point. In Cambodia, I think, or the ancient Cambodia,
all really huddled together, and it was just like, right, okay, so that's what communism looks like. Just so you know.
Yeah, but it was basically because of the lack of technology. They didn't know that they were building houses out of daub, mud bricks, and mud bricks aren't very safe, sound structural material. So they couldn't make it very ostentatious, at least the walls. Inside, they would have been very lavish, in fact, lavish for the time of the technological period that they belong to.
Impressive to people who'd never seen anything like that, without a doubt.
Yeah. Like you said in the Minos temple, the actual throne room was small, but the size and the frescoes that they had, that was something that was ostentatious to show the visiting dignitaries that the king was powerful.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But by that point, we're far down the line with the construction of political systems.
But no, it wasn't too far from the 6th millennium, from when Assyria sort of developed in the Euphrates and the Tigris area. The first Ur.
We are talking like 2,000 or 3,000 years, aren't we?
3,000, yeah, about 3,000 years. Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe we're looking at this as a relative thing, and I think realistically, it is a long time.
It is, but it's not. In fact, look what happens look what happened in 2,000 years of our modern timeline. We came from Rome, 0. Our calendar starts at 0 to today, 2017. Look at what happens. The technology accelerated more in the last 300 years, Industrial Revolution. Up until then, the society, they were slightly more complex in weapons and that, but the societies were very, very close. There wasn't that to what Rome did and what Rome did before that. Greece, Assyria, Babylon, etc. That was very, very similar. A person from Assyria landing in Rome, he would have been more impressed with the size of the buildings than from the societal setup. It wouldn't be that.
Some big buildings. I mean, it's
obviously, of course.
That's I guess I don't even know what I was trying to say with this now. Basically, I think that the distance in time is a huge factor. But yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be all that different. Although you do have to wonder. I mean, I saw a thing about I think it was in Romania or Bulgaria. Like ancient villages, something like 4,000 BC were found. These are like actual villages with, I think they had defensive walls, and
yes, they did.
Impressive, really impressive to the people who were nomadic.
Yes, and there would have been still some nomads around, but the defensive walls were more or less after the Bronze Age. Yeah, Bronze Age. So, the UK has them. We have them here in Portugal as well. We call, in the north where I live, we call them castros. Castros. That's why my avatar and my alias is Castrejo, a native of a Castro. A Iron Age, Bronze Age, hilltop fortified town. That's basically what it is. So, so we share that with most of Europe, in fact, most of Western Europe, these hilltop fortified towns. And that go to the south, there aren't as many until the Romans came. Then the Romans did build initially their forts, and then they pacified the people. And you know what happened after Rome? The Pax Romana is established across for a long time across the empire.
That's thousands of years down the line from.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, if you want, we can sort of end it now. I think an hour is enough. We talked about it a little bit. Just one thing.
Well, should we answer some questions from the chat or something? Or
yeah, sure.
I see gatekeeping.
If you see any good questions, I'm sort of a little bit out of my depth because I'm more of a do I have a Twitter account? You just wrote it, Perseus. That is my Twitter at Castrejo67. It's not my face. This is my actual face, but it's not my avatar. I have a Neanderthal as
Yeah. You've just cut out there.
Did I? Sometimes my connection fails a bit.
Are the Egyptians white? That's the question.
White. White is what is a stupid term? It's an
American political construct, basically.
It is because shit. A Norwegian is not the same shade of white as a French. A Caucasian, a Georgian, for example, from Georgia in the Caucasus. They are all different types of whites. They can say, yes, they are technically white, but no, they were sort of white, but God damn it, I hate that stupid classification. Technically, the ancient Egyptians were white. The modern Egyptians are more olive. There, I've said it. Well, at least the northern Egyptians from closer to Cairo, and so the southern Egyptians are a bit more darker beige. Can you hear me, Sargon?
Yeah, I can. It's kids waking up. Sorry, man. Go in, and so I'm just using.
What else? By the way, thanks for the huge bump in subscribers. Jesus Christ. Thanks, guys. That's it. Lord Size and no, Levi, leave the Malvinas alone, man. They are British. I will say that. I will answer that for him.
Yeah, Argentina, you've got no claim. You've never had a claim.
Get Paraguay. They took some land from Argentina. Uruguay. Now you can't have the estuary of the River del Plata. That is not yours. So get Uruguay.
The ancient Anglo, the eternal Anglo way. Tell them to fight each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So did the aliens build the pyramids? No. And neither did slaves, by the way.
Yeah, they didn't even have to use slaves to do it.
They were paid by beer and lentils.
They had like they have, for fuck's sake. I can't go in and get him because it's like at the point where it's like he's doing this for attention, so I can't do anything.
Oh man, that's okay, man. Gee, he's the boss, Sargon.
That's the point. He's fucking not, and he's got.
Yeah. What is known about the origin religions of the ancient Egyptians? I don't know, Base Mum. I have absolutely no idea on any religion's beginnings. I know that a belief in the afterlife began with the Neanderthals about 180,000 years ago. No, 280,000 years ago. I'm sorry, where they started burying the dead in an orchestrated way with grave goods and all that shit, which was ochre and flowers, and so I don't know how that began. It's not my field. I'm sorry.
I say thank you to Base Mama, who's like, don't give in, Sargon. That's how they win. I know. It's telling you to open the door. He burst out in smiles and laughter, and it's like, no, I know you're doing this for attention, so I've got to mute.
No, I'm going to ignore any Jewish questions. Sorry. Who enslaved the Jews? Nope, not going there. Archaeology, people. Archaeology. I have an article here of a temple, Gobekli Tepe, which is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It was built in the pre-pottery Neolithic A period. They did not have any pottery. They did not have any writing. They still used stone tools. They did not have any metal, yet they built a temple over 2,000 years, by the way. That's how long it took to build the complex temple area. That covered a huge area, bigger than Stonehenge itself, the Salisbury Plains, and so that's interesting.
It might be worth getting up some images of the stones.
Yes, I will.
Because they're really well done, considering they're so goddamn old. I mean, one of the things
see if I can.
I mean, like the development of pyramids is really interesting, right? Because if you look at the earliest pyramids, people are like, oh my god, they just appeared. The aliens came down and built these pyramids out of nowhere, and they were amazing. No, the early pyramids were shit. The early pyramids were just half-assed. No, not half-assed, but like they were obviously learning as they went. You've got like various kind of almost deformed pyramids. The earliest ones, they look like they look terrible.
Yeah, they were first built with clay blocks, which every time it rained, they would collapse. So that's why they have mounds. Then yes, they built the step pyramids, and then the funny one that's sort of all really wobbly. Yeah, it sort of goes a bit straight, and then it goes to a point.
It's like the bent pyramid or something. It's called.
Exactly. So it was over.
Pyramid. Here, I'll send you a.
It was over 6,000 years that the Egyptians developed the technology to make pyramids. This is in Turkey. It's called Gobekli Tepe. Let's see if there's any pictures of here. This is from the Smithsonian Institute. Stupid people. Sometimes the Smithsonian aren't that good. Let's see if I can find a better article. I know what. Let's see. I found it. Pictures. Images. Here we go. It always works. Let's see a good image. Really fine one. This one's quite good. This is from Ancient Origins. Nope. Wrong. Oh, come on. View image. That's it. Sometimes you can see these stones. They are protected by wood here, but these stones were carved with stone tools.
Yeah.
And they aren't that soft. The stones that they here, they are quite hard. They're not sandstone, which is easy, or limestone. These are a granitic type stone blocks. They were huge.
Yeah.
So I want to try and find one of the general area.
Single thing of stone as well. But can I share my screen a second?
Yes, I'll just share it for you. 1 sec. Let me get out of my stop sharing. Stop. And I think you can. I think you're sharing. Let's see.
Right. I don't know whether people can see it or not, but let me know when it's full screen.
There's a bit of a delay. So yes, the carvings. Yeah, oh, come on, so internet.
Really, let me know when it's sorted.
Yeah, there you go. You're sharing. It's yours. Go on.
Cool. Right. Yeah. So the carvings are pretty amazing. No, the early pyramids shit. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the original carvings are actually they're actually really, really amazingly detailed. I mean, and they're obviously telling something in them, but obviously we don't know what they were saying. But there's obviously some sort of religious significance, and it's lots of animals, which obviously have huge significance to these sort of ancient people. But yeah, look, really detailed.
Bear in mind that these were still nomadic peoples. They weren't not settlers. They didn't settle in an area. They may have already been have domesticated some animals, but they were not planting any crops at this point. These were still the very, very, very earliest farmers. Herders, because that's how the first food production began. And sheep, most likely. But yeah, their belief systems would have maybe have been carried on from the Neolithic period, the early late Paleolithic period, when they were still hunter gatherers. We don't know though. I'm just a bit of speculation from my part, because the animals, some of the animals that they depicted were would have later on were domesticated. The auroch became the cow, the ibex sheep, and goats.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating. Well, they must have had a religious, animals must have held some religious dimension, as in like thinking they were like spirits or something like that, which is something that common. So, but
we don't know. We obviously
we just don't know much. Here's an aerial view, which is pretty cool. I think that's a person there, so you can see that it was large given the ancient time of it. So it's.
Oh yes, it was a few hectares.
Yeah. I mean but I mean like the actual the inner complex of it. This is it's large for what it is, and for when it was, it's really interesting. And it's like, I mean, like with any of these sort of things, like Stonehenge, it would be fascinating to know why, but we just don't. And I don't think
we don't. No, we don't. And we yes, as you said, we will never know how why they did this. We know how they did this. We just don't know why.
I've stopped sharing now because that was all I wanted to...
It's fun that conspiracy theorists and all that. Oh, aliens did it and all that. Think they built it, but they don't take it. Like I said, it took 2,000 years to develop this site, and I gave an example. What happened since supposedly year 0 to 2017? Look what happened in that time period.
Well, the thing with that, right, is I think it's unfair to compare, really, because like technological increases are predicated on certain factors. There's necessity, there's population density, there's contact with other civilizations, there's natural resources and previous technologies that you already have. And when you've got a low population world that has less well-developed means of travel, and you have far lesser technology, you would not expect them to come up with many inventions over a long period of time. But as the population increases, methods of transport become better, different technologies that have already been developed already exist, so they don't need to be developed. You would expect an accelerating amount of discovery. And then when you invent the scientific method, you see the explosion that we have now. So it's actually it's exactly expected. You wouldn't get a different curve, basically, if you.
No, but I'm not saying about the convention. I'm saying the time frame.
For people who don't understand what this is all about.
Just imagine 2,000 years, how long it is. That's what took those. You didn't need hundreds of thousands of people. You could use tens of people over 2,000 years, and you'd create this.
Yeah. Someone's asked, how advanced is the knowledge and technology of antiquity? Depends what you mean by advanced, but comparing
Greece, Roman, Persia
directly after them, very, very advanced. The Romans invented concrete, and we didn't rediscover that until like the 1600s or something.
And we still haven't matched their underwater setting concrete. We still don't know how they did it.
Yeah. So it in some regards, yes. I mean, like in Alexandria, in ancient Greece as well, they actually had coin-operated machines, dispensing machines, vending machines. They actually had like clocks that ran by water, and then you have the Antiquity mechanism, where it's a system of gears and cogs and whatnot to track the movement of the stars in the solar system, and predict dates and events and things like this. So they were pretty damn advanced.
The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incas, they didn't have writing at all, yet they built really complex systems. The Mayans had a really good advanced calendars.
Yeah,
the Incas had roads as comparable to the Roman roads.
Yeah, did they? I didn't know
that. They were not built to carry carts, but for people and animals, they could transmit a message from Quito to southern, almost northern Chile in 2 or 3 days.
Really, I did not know that. And what
Well,
one of the
they did, and when I it's amazing, those roads, and also the stonery, how they cut stones with stone tools that you couldn't fit a blade of grass in between the two stones.
Yeah, the stone cutting was really advanced, and apparently it was done like on the fly as well. I was watching a documentary about this only the other day, actually, and they because the stones fit so well without any kind of not
mortar.
Mortar, that's it.
Mortar.
The one of the reasons they were set in the way they were is because of earthquakes, and it was an early form of earthquake proofing, and it was done.
They were,
and it was done, and the stones they're cut in such they're in such strange shapes to make sure they don't just topple apart. And I mean, it must have required a hell of a lot of skill to do. Hell of a lot.
They did, yeah. They tallied using knots on ropes. Basically, what writing was to us.
Mm-hmm. And
the Incas.
What the knots on the ropes are. I can't remember the name of the technique now. We haven't.
Well, no, we haven't. No. I don't know. I did a semester worth of South American archaeology, so not that.
We haven't found out exactly what Greek fire was, but it's going to be some combination of petroleum and something else. We can make an approximation of what does
sulfur, possibly some pitch, and something like that. We don't know. Yeah.
They really didn't want it to get out. So
I hope people that are listening, it's okay that we don't know shit from the past. It's okay. Even if we never discover it, it's still okay. It doesn't mean that some form of whatever did it. No. The people who invented it kept it a secret. Good for them. We don't know. We don't know the ancient languages of many of the civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
But so what?
It's
just so they get to know that we don't know, and what we don't know, it's okay. It just is good.
It's actually quite miraculous what we do know. Like for example, finding the Rosetta Stone was a gift. That could have gone undiscovered for the rest of time. It's just fluke when someone pulls something out of the ground and it's actually useful to historical understanding. You've got to get used to going, well, we don't know when talking about history.
History, archaeology, like I've done a few programs like I'm doing there tonight. Since 2014, we discovered 2 new hominins, and we're possibly discovering a third because it's just genetics, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We discovered Naledi, the lady man, who's a 5 foot tall, 500 cc brained hominin that could talk, possibly, buried the dead, deliberate burial, and he had the brain size of half of what ours has. The Naledi Homo naledi. And we found Denisovians, who is a race of humans, people. Neanderthals is a race of humans. Homo sapiens is a race of humans. They are all Homo sapiens. One is Neanderthalensis, Denisovian, and sapiens. So that is what a race is.
People don't understand is that we're Homo sapiens sapiens. We're a subcategory of Homo sapiens.
Exactly. And so Neanderthals was also a subcategory of Homo sapiens.
A subcategory of Homo sapiens.
Yeah. That is what a race is. A subcategory.
Yeah. So saying basically like white and black race is actually like technically an incorrect statement.
No, it is a totally incorrect statement because there's no white and black race. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. I've said it. I've already made a debunking video on that, but I'll sort of rush it in through here. All of our selective diseases that groups of people have, all of our characteristics that you could look at, and etc., do not distinguish us from each other. There is more variation between the Scottish people than all of the Earth's populations combined. Within the Scottish ethnic group, more vanity. So that's been established since 1969. It is a science that it's stopped. Anything that they're trying to do is basically creationism. So
it's interesting.
That is the official statement.
Someone asked a question that I think I can answer. Did the Byzantines actually have Greek fire during the Fourth Crusade? I would. I'm surprised they didn't. Why?
I don't know.
Why weapons is Greek fire? I
don't know if they did.
You think so? Why would they not?
No, I don't know. I don't know if they had or not. I don't know.
Well, I know that they. I mean, they had it in the few centuries beforehand when they were repulsing the Arabs. One of the things that the Arabs really suffered from at sea was Greek fire. So I would be surprised if they didn't have it. But I mean, they didn't use it against the Crusaders, did they? So who knows? Maybe they didn't. That's a good question, actually. That's actually a really good question. I never really thought about it, but they didn't. Because for anyone who doesn't know, the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople and set up the Latin Empire on the ruins.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe
they basically didn't go anywhere after that. If I'm not mistaken,
the Empire was crushed, and the Fourth Crusade
it ended there. Yeah.
After the Third Crusade, none of them really achieved anything. When Neanderthals had hairless, I strongly doubt. When Neanderthals, presumably asking if they're about as hairy as a modern human.
Yes, they were as hairy as modern humans.
Really, they weren't hairier.
No,
really. I don't mean like gorilla hair, but like, you know, they wouldn't have had like.
My avatar is a picture. You can search it on Google. Search my avatar. You will see how hairy he was. He was not hairier than say Ron Perlman.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting.
Our Homo sapiens sapiens, Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, Homo sapiens denisovans ancestor, which we believe to be Homo heidelbergensis, already had, most likely because he lived in Europe, and that's when the glacial periods began, would have already started to use clothing. So there's possibly a link between hairlessness and using some sort of clothing, but it's not completely established, because hairlessness and running is an advantage because you can sweat, which Homo erectus did 2 million years ago. They were runners, marathon runners. They sweated, so if they had hair, they would have overheated and they would have died of heat stroke. So hairlessness possibly came from Homo erectus, which is our most distant ancestor. So no, the Neanderthals were not hairy. Possibly neither were our ancestors, both ancestors Heidelbergensis and Homo ergaster. None of those hominins were hairy. So yeah,
that's very interesting.
We don't even know if Homo naledi, which would have been more closer to the Australopithecines than to Homo. Homo means our direct line, were hairy. We don't know. They may have been.
A good chance they were, though, that far back.
I don't know. Yeah, but because they weren't runners. Yes, they possibly were more hairy than that. Because hairlessness and running, there has to be some form of correlation.
You think so?
Yes, because you need to sweat. Humans sweat to cool off. One of the earliest hunting methods was to run down the prey. And if you were hairy, you'd heat stroke easily.
Well, why don't cheetahs heat stroke?
They run 200, 300 meters, and then they have to rest half the day after they do a sprint.
That's a fair
They
point.
do overheat.
Yeah. There was a question that I thought was quite interesting, but I've got a question for you actually. So,
Yes.
What I find interesting is that at some point in history there would have been several different species of Homo in existence, and they probably would have been aware of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any? I mean, could these
Yes.
species interbreed?
They did.
They did interbreed, and would they have produced sterile like horses and donkeys?
No, it's the latest data. Male Neanderthal and a female sapien, they would have not produced viable offspring. But a male sapien and a female Neanderthal would have produced viable offspring, because the problem is the X chromosome.
Right. Okay. Go on. Tell me more. I don't know what that is.
It's just the shape of the chromosome. I don't understand. Like I said, I don't understand the genetics part of it. But there's certain genes that just don't add up, that just don't link together in the X chromosome.
Right. Okay.
So so that's
it's always
they would have always produced females.
Right. Okay. Like I said, it was always something I'd wonder about. Like, would it have been viable offspring? And if it would have been viable offspring, does that mean they're actually different species or not?
No, they're not different. They're the same species. They're cousins. They're races. Like I'll give you a modern example of what's happening in North America. The coyote, the wolf, and the dog are producing viable hybrid animal. Did you know that?
I did not.
Because the dog, the common dog, the dog is Canis lupus familiaris. It's a subspecies of Canis lupus, the wolf. The coyote is a close enough cousin to the wolf that they could produce viable species, or at least they have interbred in America, in North America.
Right, okay. So we can actually term races for these things. Okay.
Well, I have 3.5% the DNA, Neanderthal DNA in my makeup, my map.
That's really going to validate Ghazi Koto, you know.
No, yeah, it means that I'm going to be a bit bigoted here. It means I'm smarter than him, but only him, not anyone else. Just Ghazi Kozo. I'm smarter than Ghazi Kozo because I have 3.5% Neanderthal DNA in my makeup.
I'd love for him to get a DNA test to find that he had something similar. So okay, that's
possibly. So then you have the Denisovans also, and you have a third unknown hominin that only the Andaman Islanders have.
I don't
Do you
even
know where that is?
No.
That's just Papua New Guinea, Australia. That's these islands just east of the Papua New Guinea, the Andaman Islands, New Brunswick, New Ireland, New Britain. I think it's also.
Oh right, yeah. It's in the sort of it's east of India.
Very much east of India. They're Polynesia area.
Yeah.
And they have up to 4% of an unknown cousin of ours, an unknown race of humans.
Right.
They're just totally weird. There's no match, neither Denisovan or Neanderthal. Just
we found no evidence of the existence of these humans.
The Denisovans, yes, we have two teeth and yeah, but the other ones, no. We're looking.
Right, that's really interesting.
We're looking for them.
Yeah, that's absolutely. So I had no idea.
I think I have a map here. Let's see, Neanderthals. Where are they? Oh, it's going to take me a bit of but yeah, the latest. Like I said, this is just 4-year-old information. I graduated in archaeology in 1992, and since then I've gone mad at all the new shit that's been happening.
It's fascinating because it's one of those fields that you don't realize it's constantly on the edge of learning new things. Okay, so I've got more questions. So what evidence do we have of basically interactions between the different races of humans. Because, like, if you go back like 50,000 years, you had multiple races of humans occupying this sort of overlapping areas, didn't you?
Yes, you did. Yes, especially in Western Asia, Siberia, Eastern Europe. Yes. Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains of Western Siberia. That was the melting pot of all the three races that lived. They were there in that cave, the Denisova Cave. I'm trying to find the map and the actual.
I'm just trying to get up like a picture of what it would have been like for them, because like they would have. I mean, there's no doubt they would have been able to differentiate between the races of humans on site, right? I mean, they could have looked at someone and gone, right, that's a Neanderthal, this is a Denisovan, this is Homo sapiens sapiens, this is Cro-Magnon. You know, they would have been able to make that distinction by visually, right?
Oh yeah, they were slightly different. Yeah, the Neanderthals had the sloping forehead, the extended no chin. They had a brow, really slightly large occipital toruses, which are brow ridges, really big brow ridges, and that. So yeah, visually they would have been different to us, and shorter, of course. Homo sapiens would are about a third higher, taller than Neanderthals, but. The contact, in contrary to popular belief, was not of conflict. Because it's interesting from Spain, from Spain, from the
with that, right? That's actually a really important thing to point out. Wars were not common. I mean, war itself is not possible without a state. So if you arrive back in time,
conflicts. I didn't say wars. I was just saying conflicts.
For people, just for people's general context of what we're talking about. I mean, like the idea of a war can only happen between two states, and if you don't have states, you can't have wars. You could have like tribal raids and stuff, but tribal warfare tended to be ritualized and symbolic because tribes aren't very big, and losing one or two people is a big deal. And so and then when you go back to where you've got effectively just nomadic peoples, there's nothing to fight over because you don't have anything to take from one another. You don't have any territory to protect. There's no reason to fight. So that's why like when you say conflicts, there's no reason for them necessarily to have been in conflict. In fact, it would probably be a lot more beneficial to either side to have had some sort of mutual exchange of ideas and people and whatnot rather than fight each other. Just to give people the context of why they probably wouldn't have fought very much. But sorry, yeah, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to, because I know what the perspective of someone who doesn't really know about this is, and they're going to be like, well, why wouldn't they just kill each other? It's like, well, there's no need for them to kill each other.
Yeah, correct. Conflict, like you described it, is basically a food production, came out of food production, because you needed to defend the area for your crops and your fields and all that. So hunter-gatherers, if there was any conflict between them, it would have been mostly.
It would have been a personal problem.
Very personal, and they tried. Not even tribes. Those were extended families of up to maximum 20, 25 individuals. 30 individuals. We're talking about 50,000, 60,000 years ago. So you don't want to destroy, to have your hunters hurt in any way, because you would die of starvation.
Yeah.
So Australia is slightly weird, because the Aborigines, there was evidence when I was studying that there were two types. They found two types of skulls in basically before they could unearth them. Now they can't, but when they still could, they found that they were a robust type skull and a really gracile type skull. The gracile means more delicate. So anyone knows, robust is more thicker, more heavy built, and the heavy built ones are sort of intermediate. The lighter ones and the lighter built ones and the heavy built ones, you get the intermediate ones and you get the modern Australian Aborigines. They think that, which came later, the heavy built ones came are younger than the really light, lighter boned skulls. If that's, I'll go for grasshole. I've already described what grasshole means. Yeah. Now, they thought that the heavier built ones were because they were fighting and getting hit over the head with clubs. There's a theory going along.
This is really interesting. I can't remember. I think it was Herodotus who went to when he was doing his histories, which means inquiries for anyone who wants to know. He went to Egypt and found a battle between the Persians and the Egyptians, and the skulls, like the battlefield of the thing, and he retrieved skulls from the battlefield, and he commented on how the Egyptian skulls were thicker than the Persian skulls, and he put that down to the Egyptians shaving their heads. And so they didn't have like the protection of the hair or something. I mean, that's just his speculation. I'm not saying that was the reason, but it's interesting how even then, he could distinguish these sort of morphological features between the skeletons.
Yeah, well, you can, yeah. But that's one of the theories that was floating around. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't.
That was doubt that, but a bit weird though. I'm trying to find out the map of the Denisovans and the modern humans, and also the I think it's this one, because the Denisovan genome is found. Where is it found? It's found in Tibet and in Siberia, concentration, the eastern Siberia. It may have been an adaptation to the cold and height and altitude. So I'm trying to find out a map of. I lost the map. I had a map of that showed whether the three species met.
I've got a Wikipedia one up, which I'll send you a link. You can see it. There's a link in the chat. Denisovians, basically, as Homo heidelbergensis came out of Africa, they turned left and into Europe after going through the Middle East. The Neanderthals went sort of north past the Caspian Sea, and the Denisovians went east through Iran and over India and down into Papua New Guinea.
Exactly, and into America as well. The American natives also have some very, very small. Yeah. Now this is
at the time.
Heidelbergensis gave rise to Homo sapiens sapiens, Homo sapiens Denisovans, and Homo sapiens neanderthalensis in Africa. We know that is established, and Neanderthalensis established in Europe 280,000 years ago, while Homo sapiens developed from Heidelbergensis 200,000 years ago. Denisovans is weird because we don't know when there was the split. What it's shown here is possibly, but we don't know when it happened after 200,000 years ago. It had to, yeah, but we still don't know hardly anything of Heidelbergensis. Not Heidelbergensis, of Denisovans. We don't know. Like I said, we only have the fingertip, the small fingertip of an individual, and 2 molars. That's all we have of their genetic material.
That's all we have. Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
not genetic, physical material.
I think one interesting thing to let people know is one thing. For example, was it Homo erectus? Not Homo erectus. Cro-Magnon. Sorry. They were really tall, weren't they?
No, they were us. Cro-Magnon were us.
But were they not tall?
Average size. You're gonna between, say, a French to German size.
Yeah, but they were. I mean, when I say tall, I mean like modern human height. Because
yeah. They were modern humans. They were modern humans.
Yeah. But the thing is, modern humans change. Modern humans haven't always had the same physical characteristics, as it were, like the height specifically. With the invention of agriculture came when humans became dependent on agriculture, you see a massive drop in the average height of people, presumably due to a lack of variation in diet. The average Roman soldier, the average legionary, was 5'4". So, and the average Cro-Magnon, I remember reading somewhere they were about 6 foot. And so like the Gauls were considered much taller, they were huge in comparison. But and the Germans as well. But they probably weren't actually very tall. They were probably only about 5'7", 5'8", something like that. But compared to the Romans, who were tiny little men, I mean,
well, tiny is slightly tiny is
5 foot.
I know what you mean. Yeah, 5 foot 5 yeah.
So when you think of the Roman legions, chaps, you have to think of armies of manlets.
They were all sizes, because the Romans did pick up recruits from all over the empire. So. Homo erectus was over 6 foot.
Really, that's huge.
Turkana boy, he's a Homo erectus child to teenage. He would have been 14, 16 years old. Lake Turkana in Ethiopia, Kenya. He was 1.80 meters.
Christ.
And they reached to 2 meters 10, 6'3", 6 foot, about the size of a really good American basketballer. Something like what are the taller ones, or the average size, really high ones. Yeah, those ones.
But and so that's the. I just find it fascinating that the diet changes and the human body, well, I guess, adapts to suit the environment. But I just find it really interesting how these people wouldn't have, because I guess you've always got the idea that they're going to be like malnourished and like, people who are suffering in nature, and they weren't necessarily like that. You would have found them to get 6 feet tall. You got pretty well fed.
That is the biggest misconception that is ever. That's a Victorian misconception. Yeah. When they first found Homo neanderthalensis in Germany, in the Neander Valley, he's brutish. He was this and that. It's been found with studies. Stephen Jay Gould was a famous biologist. He died some time ago. He did a study in Australia, studied the Australian Aborigines, and they found these facts, which is basically comparative archaeology. You get a study, you can see how they react, and you try to find the same pattern in the past, and they're very, very close. Hunter-gathering. Now, they found that hunter-gatherers have much more leisure time than agriculturalists, even up until modern times. They found that they had a much, much greater variation in the foodstuffs that they ate, greater calorific intake, greater more of the good things. And Homo sapiens were the most efficient hunters that have ever been on Earth.
Yeah, that's another good point. I think the conception is, I would find it really difficult to hunt something, and therefore these people must have been going hungry often. It's like, no. These people are expert hunters. This is what they did with their time, and they had big brains. Like, imagine if you'd been trained to hunt since you were a child. And you would be amazing at it. And these people were also amazing at it. They set traps. They had all sorts of, weaponry that animals could, never have had. And all this sort of stuff. This is why
exactly. But hunting was only 45% of the total food that they ate. The other 55% was gathering. And guess who did the gathering? Women, children, and old people. Yeah. This was the actual egalitarian society. Like I said before, the 55% of the total calorific intake were performed by women, old people, and children, gathering foodstuff, small animals, small game. If the main hunters failed to capture any food, they were never past starving or even being badly off. Because 4 or 5, they would have had enough vegetable food stuff, small game, traps, fish, a huge cornucopia of food to choose from.
I think it's important to note that this wasn't a paradise like we're portraying it, though. If you were sick and anything like that, you were probably done for.
Oh yeah. If you broke a bone, you wouldn't die. Though you would have been taken care of. Shit, even Homo erectus took care of the infirm. They found the bone, a skull, in the Middle East somewhere, Central Asia. I can't remember now. Where it was an old lady. They've calculated her age to be in the 60s.
Really?
And she had no teeth, or he had no teeth. I don't know if it was a she or he. Can't remember now. No teeth, and for a long time in her life, in her or his life, I can't remember if it was a male or a female. So they took care of the. They would have had someone to chew the food and give it to him.
Christ.
So yeah.
I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's not that they wouldn't have tried. I mean, I remember reading a thing about Neanderthals who they regularly broke bones, and so they must have. I think it was actually a documentary actually, but they regularly broke their bones, just fighting with animals and hunting and stuff like this, and so they would have
because of the hunting technique.
Yeah, and they would have had to take care of each other. But if you got sick or something, there was basically nothing you could do, and you were effectively, broken bones aside. I mean, you were at the ravages of the environment. So
they did have medicinal plants. They knew of them. Again, I can't find the bloody article. I know it's in one of my streams that I did. That they in Spain again. They found that they ate. It was an article that said, the Neanderthals were vegetarians or vegans. About a couple of 1 or 2 months ago, and it was 3 individuals that they could not find in their caries, the plaque built up in their teeth. They found no DNA of any animal, only DNA from plants, funguses, and stuff like that. And also, they said, they kissed humans because they found the bacteria in the of humans, modern humans, that the Neanderthals did not possess.
So, sorry. They found they kissed humans because
they shared saliva. They shared saliva.
That's disgusting. Neanderthals. I don't know whether anyone's looked up a picture yet. They're fucking ugly.
But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's not. I just have to look at my avatar from my Twitter and even this video.
Neanderthal woman, and they're not winning any beauty contests. I'm just saying that, and it's not the fact that they've all got like ragged hair and but
you're comparing modern beauty standards with then, man. In the Middle Ages, a plump woman was a height of beauty.
This isn't modern. This is about the dimensions of the face, because like you were saying, like they had really thick brows, they had like huge noses, huge wide noses, no chin, big lips, and so it gives them an attractive faces. I'm afraid.
Let's see some images from Neanderthals.
I mean, they look like.
I'm gonna share. There you go. Some were, but some weren't that bad.
Okay, look up Neanderthal woman though.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's not. She's not a looker, is she?
Yeah, well, she's not. She's. I'll tell you what. I'd still bonk her instead of say Anita Sarkeesian or those type of.
I Sarkeesian any day, mate. I'm sorry. I actually think she's not bad looking. So.
She's all right. Yeah, I'm only trying to exaggerate. But Clementine Ford, I'd fuck the Neanderthal instead of Clementine Ford. Nope.
I probably would too, but I think that'd be a political statement.
Yeah, exactly. So, do you see they were?
They weren't hot.
No, but they weren't. They don't have to be hot. Like this one. This is another reconstruction of a Neanderthal. No, this is Homo sapiens. No, Neanderthal woman. This one's okay.
Yeah, she's okay.
This is a guy. This is another one. This is another one. Yeah, they found ugly ones, but shit, it's just common. Another one. No, this is not. This is bullshit. This one's true.
Go back to the Neanderthal.
The ugly one.
Black one. The black one.
This one.
You know the black one where you were like that was.
Sorry. Let's see. Where is it?
Right. Because this is what Afrocentrists do all the time.
This is Pinterest.
Not something that has ever existed. But Neanderthal were not black, unfortunately for them, I guess.
They were ginger. They were ginger. They had the ginger gene.
Yeah, they were disgusting white people, probably racist, and
very much so. Yes. Oh, this one's fucking awesome. Look at this one.
Sure.
Oh god, I'm gonna get a community strike for this.
Well, maybe.
No, but yeah. Look at this old bloke. This is a Neanderthal old bloke. Reconstruction. These guys do paleo reconstruction artists. They do fucking awesome jobs. They can. I did a stream about this. How they do it.
Sorry,
and
it's woken up again, and I can't go out and do anything. I'm just gonna have to mute myself. Sorry.
If you want to end the stream, we can end it on a high note by Neanderthals.
Oh, I don't especially, but I guess I probably should. But anyway, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
And you know where to find your free archaeological list. Well, I'm not an expert, but I know enough. So you know where to find me. Yeah, I do have a degree, Bachelor of Arts in Archaeology. I don't need a doctorate because I've seen too many basket weaving doctorates around. So, yeah. Okay, everyone. I don't need to shill. I don't need to ask Sargon to shill his channel. But thanks for coming along, mate. It's always a pleasure.
Honestly.
See you, everyone. Bye bye.